story of the Manker-Patten Tennis Club begins with a Chattanooga family. The 6 children of John Allenson and Edith Manker-Patten were athletes, and although they participated in many sports, tennis was a particular favorite.
That a lot of members of the Patten family really loved to hit a little white ball around on the court, occasionally to smash it, to get rid of some possible repressions or anger. But a lot of the family played tennis. As a matter of fact, I can't think of anybody in our family that wasn't exposed to tennis lessons very early in their upbringing.
But it was David Manker-Patten and Zebulon Lupton-Patten who were the catalysts for what would become the Manker-Patten Tennis Club. In 1932, they asked their mother Edith to donate land by the Tennessee River for a tennis center. The idea was to create a tennis club that could be used by the family, club members, and by tennis players at the University of Chattanooga, then an independent university. In this plan, they may have played upon the interests and sympathies of Edith Manker, whose involvement with the University of Chattanooga was deep and abiding. Founded in 1886 as Chattanooga University, its name was changed in 1889 to U.S. Grant University. In 1907, it was renamed University of Chattanooga.
Well, grandfather and grandmother always had a very strong interest in the success of our local university, which at that time was the University of Chattanooga. It had been Grant University. It had, and this is all secondhand knowledge, but it had been Grant University and had some serious financial problems around the turn of the century, which my grandfather and grandmother helped them get past with their donations. This is strictly my opinion, but I think it's shared by a lot of my cousins, that the real interest in the university was because my grandmother had a staunch Methodist background, and the institution, the university, had a lot of Methodist connections. And, well, grandmother's father was Bishop Manker. And so the university having those connections with the Methodist Church, I'm sure was a great persuasion on my grandmother, and anything that she was persuaded to do was going to be also felt by my grandfather, I'm sure.
The legacy of John and Edith Patten is memorialized today by the Patten Memorial Chapel, dedicated to John A. Patten. In 1932, when the brothers approached Edith about a donation, John A. had died in 1916. Lupton was 25 and had already had an illustrious career at the University of Chattanooga. He won the UC Tennis Championship in singles twice, was captain of the tennis team, and was sports editor of the Echo, the college newspaper, among other achievements. Lupton would go on to become president of the Chattanooga Medicine Company, which during World War II became the largest supplier of K-rations and a leading supplier of medicine for the U.S. Army. For these efforts, the Medicine Company was awarded the prestigious E Award, named for General Eisenhower, not once, but 5 times. And there was much more. He was a trustee of the University of Chattanooga, on the boards of the Bright School and Girls Preparatory School, head of the War Fund and community chess campaigns, and was active in most of the city's cultural undertakings. Upon his death, at the early age of 51, the Chattanooga Times said, "To say that Mr. Patten was active in civic affairs is merely to suggest the barest sort of outline of what he did and of what he gave for Chattanooga and its people. There was scarcely an area of its development in which he had not worked with ardor himself or supported with sound advice and material aid. David Manker Patten was the oldest boy of the Patten children, some 12 years older than Lupton, the youngest. He too had an illustrious college career at Wesleyan College in Connecticut, where he was a member of the Phi Nu Theta fraternity and captain of the football, basketball, and tennis teams. Manker studied at the Wharton Business School before returning home upon the death of his father to join the management team at the Chattanooga Stamping and Enameling Company. When World War I broke out, he entered officers' training and was commissioned as a second lieutenant attached to the 371st Infantry. Manker saw 11 months of European service with his regiment, which was decorated for exceptional bravery by General Ferdinand Foch for its performance during the Battle of Argonne Forest. Despite losing half its regiment, 1,065 out of 2,384 troops during the first 3 days of the battle, the regiment captured key territory, took critical German supplies, and shot down 3 German aircraft with rifle and machine gun fire. Returning home, Manker resumed his work at the Chattanooga Stamping and Enameling Company. Like his brother, he was active in civic affairs, including the Rotary Club and the Southern Lawn Tennis Association, where he served as president. Later, he was the full-time Southern representative of Wilson, where he made friends and contacts that would benefit the tennis center. Manker ended his career at the University of Chattanooga, where he was a teacher and tennis coach. But in 1932, all that was in the future.
Daddy was always involved with the university. He was, in my mind, I don't know if he was on the board that entire time, but when he graduated from the university, he taught. And that's, I think, when he coached the tennis team. And okay, so if we have Daddy graduating, he was born in 07, and he graduated, let's say, at 1920. He founded this club in 32. So we're talking about 5 years later. So he was just right off the tennis circuit, so to speak. And so I think they wanted something local.
I can't remember exactly how old I was, but I think I must have been about 7, possibly 8, because my father, as you probably know, died when I was 6. And I knew that all I knew was what my mother had told me about what was going on, basically, that Uncle Manker, your grandfather, and Uncle Lup Patten had come up with the idea of putting in a tennis facility that the university could use.
Of course, Uncle Manker Patten and Uncle Lupton Patten were leaders in the formation of the Chattanooga Tennis Club and its continuing existence, and they also were fine tennis players, and so it went forward from there. At that time, the clubhouse, we see the wonderful clubhouse today. At that time, the clubhouse was a frame building on the upper level there where they have apartments or condominiums now. It was not a year-round function, and so in the fall you would cut the water off and shut it down for the winter, and then you would come back and reopen it again.
Daddy and Uncle Manker asked their mother, she owned the property, asked her for the property to have some tennis courts, and as I understand, they just had 6 clay courts down there at first, and just an old house, just a tiny house, was the clubhouse. It was just a little house up on the hill.
The tennis club quickly became an important regional tennis center, attracting many of the most important tennis players of the day.
We've always heard the story that Bobby Riggs came. Daddy was fascinated by Bobby Riggs. Daddy was fascinated by people, I think, who tiptoed up to that line.
I met Alice Marble, who was a devoted friend of Daddy's, and actually for many years treasured a lovely leather wallet that she had given him. She was there with Teach Tennant, her coach. The Tennessee Valley Invitational Tournament, I think, was conceived by Uncle Lupp. And of course, Daddy knew practically every tennis player in the country, so we were treated to a parade of the finest players here, even attracting many from abroad. The Lupton Pattens housed many of them, and of course Fontaine and Charlotte Phillips got to know them as house guests.
Uncle Michael Patten and Uncle Lupton Patten started it. They started what they call the TVI, the Tennessee Valley Invitational, and they brought, before World War II, people like national champion Bobby Riggs here, and the English tennis player Fred Perry here. They have continued that tournament, although they have changed it to what they call the Tennessee Valley Open Challenge, TVOC, but the TVI and the TVOC are the same.
The family continued its intense interest in tennis, developing nationally recognized amateur champions. Alex Gary Jr., a grandson of John A. and Edith Manker, won a number of national titles, including 2 national father-son championships. He was a Tennessee State College singles champion and was inducted into the Tennessee Tennis and Southern Tennis Halls of Fame, among other honors. Alex was a principal supporter of the early Chattanooga Tennis Club and later the Manker-Patten Tennis Club. His son Zan, for whom the clubhouse at the Manker-Patten Tennis Club is named, holds an astonishing 29 junior and adult national titles in both singles and doubles. In 1960, he won his first national tennis championship on the courts of the Manker-Patten Tennis Club. In 1956, the officers and board of the Chattanooga Tennis Club deeded the center to the University of Chattanooga.
It became a part of the University of Chattanooga. And at some point in time, Benwood made a very substantial gift. I'm not positive. I've been told it was for the new clubhouse, the year-round clubhouse, so-called. That's my understanding. DeSales Harrison was a fine tennis player, president of Coca-Cola Thomas, a trustee of Benwood, and of course Benwood, we know, was set up by Mr. George Hunter, and Mr. Scott Probasco was a trustee, and DeSales Harrison and so forth. And so they did that. They made a wonderful gift.
At that time, David Manker-Patten was in his final illness, and his daughter Janet remembers a hospital visit by Alex Gary, who was a part of the team which spearheaded the project to gift the University of Chattanooga with the center.
As a natural evolution, the university had used the old tennis club clay courts for their matches, and the professors had certainly a lower dues and that sort of thing. It was a natural evolution to bring the two entities together with Uncle Lupp's association and business vision and Father's lead, as they keep saying, the spirit of tennis. So I'm not sure exactly who were on the committee from the tennis club. The officers, of course, were involved, and from the university side, Uncle Lupp, Dr. Lockmiller, and Ella Gary. And when Daddy was in the hospital in his final days, Ella came by and said, "You'll be happy to know the arrangements are complete, or the arrangements are accepted," or words to that effect, that this transfer had been made to the university in acceptable terms to all of the entities.
It was undoubtedly a comfort to Manker that his beloved tennis center would become one of the crown jewels of the university he served and loved so well. However, he had no inkling that the center would be named for him.
I know, especially your father was at the university. I think he adored it, but I know it was of the utmost importance that this club be named Manker Patten. I know that he was determined to do that. He thought he deserved to have it named after him. He was very involved with the university, and they were involved with the university, and so it was important to him that the club be named after him.
A year and 24 days after Manker's death, the Manker Patten Tennis Center was dedicated to his memory. Bill Talbert, a legendary tennis player who earned 33 national titles during his career, spoke at the dedication. Talbert had a personal reason for participating.
Billy Talbert was one of the players that Daddy mentored during his developing years, and I think that Billy was a diabetic and had to give himself a shot every day, and he did not want anybody to know this. Daddy was one of the very few people who did, and at some tournament at which they were both present, Billy did not arrive on time, court time, which was an unforgivable protocol of not being observed. And Daddy went to look for him and found him in a diabetic coma and was able to get the appropriate help. And I think Billy always felt he'd saved his life. So when the tennis center was dedicated just a year and a few days after Daddy's death, Billy was the main speaker. He was captain of the Davis Cup team at that time. And he said he was honored to have been asked to participate. Alec Gary arranged the presentation of the ceremony. At that time he was president of the Southern Lawn Tennis Association, and of course Uncle Luppy was chairman of the trustees at the university.
In a 1974 speech, Alex Gary would say, "Beyond any other city of our size in the United States, and possibly even in the world, Chattanooga is famous for our tennis." Today, the independent Manker Patten Tennis Club continues to attract and nurture talent from around the country. But as Alex Gary reminded us in 1972, I think we can properly look back over the last 40 years to the first clay courts and wood clubhouse on this property and say that while many people have contributed, those two brothers occupy a very special place. The physical body of tennis in Chattanooga was in large measure the result of the thought and efforts of Lupton Patten, and the spirit of tennis as it developed here was in large measure due to Manker Patten.